You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Wow, what a packed show we have for you today. We start out with Dani Marie from Female Frequency, which is producing the very first all women untouched by male hands recording by women but for everybody. It's a whole new kind of music. And then we speak with Elizabeth Sweet, who is an expert on gender and toys, and we're facing a pushback these days. We're losing ground on sexist toys. It's an interesting discussion. In Surrealism Corner, we go all the way to China and Taiwan for our surrealism hit. And my last guest is Somini Sengupta, the award-winning foreign correspondent from the New York Times, who is here to talk about her first book, and a good book it is. And in We Won This, I actually have some nice things to say, brace yourself, about the U.S. Senate. Probably not for long. Then, of course, there's fighting words. So let's get started. Before any of this, we have to go inside the headlines. It never fails to amaze me that people react with shock to news of something that's been under their nose all along, and usually that the women's movement has been trying to draw to their attention for some time. So Brazilians reacted with shock after the May 21st assault of, sounds like 33 possible attackers in a gang rape of a 16-year-old girl. Breaks the heart. Graphic photos and videos of the unconscious, naked teenager were posted on Twitter, and men were joking online about the attack. Otherwise, it might never have come even to the attention of the authorities. She was raped in a shantytown on the west side of Rio de Janeiro as she was visiting her boyfriend. That's what the Associated Press reported. She told the police that she was briefly alone with him, but remembered nothing until she woke up naked the next day in another building among dozens of men who had guns. It's unclear whether the boyfriend was one of the attackers, although the police are seeking him too. They claim they've found one possible perpetrator. The new president, Michael Temer, promised to create a federal police unit to address crimes against women, saying it's absurd that in the 21st century we have to live with barbarous crimes like this. And he also called an emergency meeting of security ministers for each of Brazil's states to consider gender-related crimes. Brazil, of course, is reeling under a number of hits. The corruption scandals at the highest levels of their parliament, their Congress, and the downfall of President Dilma Rousseff and much of her team, the Zika virus, the looming Olympics that may or may not take place there because of the Zika virus, and other problems. And this is just the latest among them. Demonstrators gathered in Rio with signs reading "Machismo kills" and "No means no." And in Sao Paulo, protesters made a mural with messages that included the phrase, "I like to wear necklines. That's not an invitation to rape me." The girl gave brief comments, but she was brave enough to give any, saying, "The stigma is what hurts me most. It's as if people are saying, it's my fault. I want people to know that it is not the woman's fault. You can't blame a robbery victim for being robbed." Indeed. The Brazilian Center for Latin American Studies found that more than 92,000 women were killed in gender-related crimes, including rape and domestic abuse, from 1980 to 2010. And I first learned of this before it hit the newspapers because suddenly a quote of mine was sort of trending almost on Twitter by women in Latin America and even in New Zealand and Australia, quoting me. The quote is, "If rape in war is a crime against humanity, then what is it in peacetime?" I was referencing the extremely important precedent set in the Arusha court by Judge President of the court Navanithan Pillai, when she was heading that court, and she established for the first time the precedent in law that rape in war, particularly ethnic rape, was a crime against humanity. And to that I replied, if it's a crime against humanity in war, then what is it in peacetime? In other words, we start where we can and we gain ground where we can, but we have to extend that consciousness to understand that it's a crime against humanity anytime. And this just shows it in Brazil. On a happier note, though, and in terms of fighting back, I received a notice from one of the listeners about something that I'm going to publicize, although we don't usually publicize demonstrations. It would take up the entire program. But this was a young woman who wrote me saying that there are about 150 of us in Austin, Texas, area known as the Female Federation. We connect online, we support each other, we fight for our rights, and we've made a decision to bring back Oogle Day, or Ogle, O-G-L-E, as in oogling somebody, on June 9th, 2016, 46 years after the original one. She had watched the documentary about the 1970s called She's Beautiful When She's Angry, and she felt empowered by it. And so with signs and chants, they're going to take to their streets on June 9th in hope that they can show that this sort of behavior is not okay, that is, oogling women. But in addition, they want to make a bigger impact in Texas and the Southwest, especially, she writes, seeing as we're now fighting for not only our body rights in terms of reproductive rights in Texas, you know how Texas is vamping down on abortion providers, but we're also fighting for our right to vote with our maiden names, a right to buy condoms, and a right to get basic female medical needs, that is, tampons tax-free. So you can find out more about this. It's the Ogle Movement, O-G-L-E movement at gmail.com. And thank you to Shane, C-H-E-Y-N-E, McClaskey, for writing and telling us about June 9th, 2016, Ogle Day. And last but not least, kudos to 3 Los Angeles area women who saved another young woman, a stranger, from being drugged by a date at a Santa Monica restaurant. Sonia Ulrich, Marla Salzer, and Monica Kenyon took to Facebook to tell the story that they'd seen this guy trying to slip a roofie into her drink when she went to the women's room. They went and warned her. They alerted the restaurant. The guy is in custody. She's okay. And they took to Facebook with a meme in a Charlie's Angel style pose declaring, "Don't roofie someone on our watch." And within a few hours, the post had already been shared more than 70,000 times. You go, girls. And now for my first guest. Dani Marie is a songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and founder of FemaleFrequency.com, which is a collective dedicated to empowering women and girls through the creation of music that is entirely female-generated. The rest is history, or maybe herstory. Here is Dani Marie. Dani, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're a songwriter and a multi-instrumentalist, and you are a founder of FemaleFrequency.com. Tell us what FemaleFrequency.com is. I know, and I'm chortling with glee about it, but our listeners don't. And tell us how it came to be.
Great. So I guess it was around February or March of last year. I wanted to work with a female producer for my next record, and in my initial search, I noticed that there weren't that many female-owned and operated recording studios or female producers. So I reached out to Women in Music, and they have a Google group. So I had a response from Julie Catherine, who's I Am Snow Angel, and she's been producing her own music and wanted to start working with other artists. So we sat down, got a cup of coffee, and started talking about making an album together, and we decided to make the album completely made with women involved, mixing, mastering, engineering. Every single part of the album, even artwork, marketing, videography, and everything was completed by a woman.
Oh, this is so cool. This is hallelujah. Go on.
It's been a pretty surreal experience. It all started from that, and we wanted to have another female artist involved in the record, so we contacted Claire London, and she's also one of the songwriters and collaborators for the album, as well as one of the co-founders. And we came up with the name Female Frequency to, talk about what we were doing with the album, and we had responses from women all over the world, which is really, really amazing. And that experience opened up all these different doors of other female producers that we didn't realize were out there as well. And we also met Carrie Keys through Sound Girls, who's out in LA, who focuses on live audio engineering for women as well as in the recording studio, and developed a relationship with her, which has been really awesome. And, we put together the fundraiser for Female Frequency for the album, and since we were getting so many responses, we decided to make something beyond that. So we started working with different groups to start some workshops for women and girls to learn about music technology. So it started out as the idea, and we actually are finally, the album is done, and we will be releasing the music starting in June.
Oh, how fabulous.
Which we're very excited about. The first song is actually a cover song from the movie 9 to 5, actually.
Fantastic. Oh, this is so wonderful. What a hard row it is to hoe for women in the music industry still. I mean, I guess most people think, well, there's, Beyonce, and there's Taylor Swift has power, so women have it made. But they never, first of all, those are superstars and not your basic functioning musicians who hold down 3 jobs in order to do their music. But also, nobody ever thinks, where are the women producers? Where are the women engineers? And obviously, you asked that question.
Yeah, and from that, I've met so many amazing women that from all over the world that are involved in production and beat making and DJing and things like that. And it's been very inspirational for all of us. I started out as started out classically trained on piano and went through going to school as a vocal major, and didn't really become a songwriter until later in life. Never really thought about producing and getting involved in beat making and things like that. And now from all of these different women that have been inspiring me as well, like I'm finally getting into learning Ableton Live and learning how to produce on my own. So
wow. Yeah,
it's been really great.
It's a sharing and exchange of skills, and you must be sort of in a state of a permanent legal high from producing good work and producing it all with other women without sexual harassment, without any of the other, we will leave the word blank, stuff. The site is, we should say it many times, is femalefrequency.com. And also that sort of backup to it, although it's older, womeninmusic.org is a wonderful organization. It was founded in the 80s, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're on the board of Women in Music now, too.
Yep.
Oh,
yep. I help them out with events and things like that. And, that organization is really great, and that's how I met I Am Snow Angel, and how a lot of this started. So the networking that's involved in that group is, I can't speak highly enough about it.
So those are the 2 sites. Keep in mind, listeners, please, womeninmusic.org and femalefrequency.com. And on the Female Frequency site, there's news about the radio show that you have. And you should tell us about that. And a terrific store where you can buy merchandise and stuff saying Female Frequency. And then you have a Twitter chat too. You are just exploding in all directions. So be sure and give us all that information.
Definitely. So we have a radio show every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's on RadioNowhere903.com. And we feature different female artists. So it's all different types of genres, and we have all different organizations that actually help us co-host the show. So there's Go Girls Music, which is another great organization that also has their own Twitter chat. There's also Sound Girls, and you can find them at soundgirls.org. That's the organization I mentioned earlier that focuses on live audio engineering as well. They host a show as well as the California Women's Music Festival. And we have Catherine Rondeau, who's a local folk artist out in Philadelphia. She hosts a show for us. And hers is more based around classic and folk music, traditional ballads and things like that. So, and we have everything from that to, electronic music, to pop, to hip hop. So
wow.
a lot of different genres floating around in there.
This is so exciting. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the day when Olivia Records was founded, and that was like, wow, hallelujah, fireworks, flags from all the buildings. And lately we've had on the show Capella Clausura, which is a women's group in, I think, Boston, which is resurrected from the 9th century and the 8th, and way back and into the Middle Ages, music by women composers. So there seems to be a whole huge groundswell of activism among women in music. Am I just fantasizing, or this seems real?
No, I would say it's real.
And the record, tell about the record. What's on the record and when will it be out? In June, you said.
Yeah, in June. So I Am Snow Angel is the main producer and engineer for the album.
You're not hearing wrong, listeners. Her name is I Am Snow Angel.
Yeah, and it's been very inspirational working with her. She's done a great job with the record. Basically, it's set up as a 5-track EP, and she provided the instrumental tracks for all of the songs, and then Claire London and I, as well as I Am Snow Angel, came up with the lyrics and vocal melodies. So there'll be a track that I'm featured on where I sing over one of I Am Snow Angel's instrumental tracks. Mm-hmm. Same thing for Claire London, and she was also involved in some of the production on her song. And then we have, and I Am Snow Angel has her own song on there, and then we have a co-write where we wrote all the lyrics together. And that song, I'm really excited to release that. That'll be released closer to the fall. We've been working with different recording studios all over the place too.
And this entire process is not touched by male hands, untouched, as we say, by male hands. And you're going to do the same in terms of the marketing. Where can people get the music? Will it be on iTunes? Will it be downloadable from your site? How will they be able to get it?
It will be everywhere. Right now, we do have pre-orders available on Bandcamp, so you could just find Female Frequency on Bandcamp.com, and you can pre-order the album. We will have it on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, like pretty much anywhere you can find music online, you can find that. And it'll have information about all of the different women that are involved in it. Actually, I should mention with our co-write song, we also have drums that were provided by Kiran Gandhi, who's been very involved with different feminist movements and things like that. And she's awesome songwriter and producer as well. She's been doing a lot of great things. She goes by Madam Gandhi as well. Yeah, she's really awesome.
What a far-flung and terrific group. So, well, this is fantastic. So tune into the radio show on Wednesdays. You can find out more about all of this in the Twitter chat at femalefrequency.com, and you can keep up with their news. You going to play out in any concerts?
We are talking about putting together a show maybe sometime in the fall or the winter after the album is out.
Okay. Keep us posted. Thank you so much, Dani, and congratulations to you and I Am Snow Angel and Claire London and the whole group for Female Frequency. We needed you, and I'm so glad you exist, and it's the beginning of women's music taking over the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's time for a break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, but I'll be back in just a moment with an expert about gender and toys. And if you think there's been progress, brace yourself. There's been backlash. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. Dr. Elizabeth Sweet is a sociologist and a lecturer at the University of California, Davis, and at California State University, Sacramento. And her research focuses on gender and children's toys, and there are a lot of surprises taking place in that area that I didn't know about, and I bet you didn't know about either. Here is Dr. Elizabeth Sweet. Elizabeth, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Robin. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. My goodness. Your research focuses on such an important subject, gender and children's toys. I remember that when my son was little, this was a real problem. And if anybody had said, by the year 2016, you think that there will still be a problem with this, I would have said, no, of course not. We will have won everything. The revolution will have, and here we are. It's better, isn't it? But all of your work shows that there's a way to go.
It's actually worse. It's hard to believe, but it's actually worse. If you look back, so in my research, I look at the gendering of toys over the 20th century to try to understand what we see today, which is we see very pink aisles and very blue aisles and really nothing in between. So in the 1970s, there was actually a dip in the gender categorization and stereotyping of toys, certainly as a reflection of the hard work that was being done by so many, including yourself. And so, but in the years after, the gender categorization of toys kind of surged back. And what we see today is unprecedented. It's worse than it's ever been.
Oh, my God. I think I'll go slit my wrists over the nearest basin. Oh, Elizabeth, this is so awful. I mean, I thought because there's discussion about it, there was a day-long conference sponsored by the White House Council on Women and Girls. I think you were there.
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, well, hey, attention is being paid. But attention's being paid because it's got worse, not better. Oh, my God. Sexism is so hard to uproot. We're doing it, and we will continue to do it. But it's the real big one. It is just, well, talk about your research.
Yeah, so, I got interested in this topic because I'm a mother, and when my daughter was born in 2002, I'm looking at the toys, and I'm thinking, this looks very different than what I remember from my childhood, which was, certainly there was some gendering of toys going on in the 70s and 80s, but it seemed so much more intense, so I wanted to study that. And so I looked at Sears catalog toy advertisements over the 20th century to try to understand how the gendering of toys had changed over time and the kinds of gender stereotypes embedded into toys. How did that change over time? And ultimately, I was interested in how that connected to broader shifts in gender relations and in gender inequality in society. And so this period in the late 20th century is really interesting because, sort of at the time when we see the most progress in terms of gender equality in the adult world, we see this backsliding in children's toys.
There's a disproportionate, I think, amount of coverage given to the successes. It's like, wow, a man can wash a dish. And I remember there was huge coverage over the fact that Barbie was not only now in different ethnicities, and not only could she do, she could be a jet pilot or an astronaut or this or that, but she could, there was a plump Barbie, there was a short Barbie, and I remember thinking to myself, well, this is good news, and then also thinking to myself, 40 years of my life of activism have gone into there being a plump Barbie. Way to go. Right. Big deal. Meanwhile, Barbie is still about acquiring clothes and houses and stuff,
Yeah. I mean, I think really what we see and what I see in toys is not that the stereotypes ever go away. They just change. They sort of mutate in ways that make them palatable to the mass audience at any given moment. So in toys, I do see this period in between the 60s and the 80s, when the real traditional gender roles that were so heavily embedded in children's toys in the early part of the 20th century do kind of ebb away. But in the 80s, they're replaced with these new fantasy gender roles like the princess and the superhero.
Right.
They really are the same stereotypes. They've just been repackaged in a way that people feel less threatened by, which to me makes them even more dangerous.
Of course. No, absolutely. Because it comes in under the radar.
Exactly.
What can, you're an expert on this, what can we do about this? What is it clearly economics is the bottom line. I mean, the reason that they changed at all in the 70s, if, as they say, you do, and it did seem that there was a breath of air there, it was because we were demonstrating and we were boycotting, and we had little plastic stickers, made up, that were just not plastic, but just, plain little paper stickers that you could surreptitiously slap on a product saying this is sexist or this demeans women, and then you could sort of surreptitiously put it on a product as you went down the aisle and then scoot and not get busted. So they were feeling that pressure. Does that have to happen again, or what else can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is why the conversation, for example, the conversation at the White House, there's been a building movement among parents and among advocates, again, saying this is a problem, and using social media has become the sort of sticker on the box. People are using social media to pressure companies and posting images of things that are really offensive. And that, I think, is why the conversation is gaining steam. So I definitely think these things need to be brought out into the light. The conversation needs to continue. And ultimately, I mean, I think oftentimes the discussion revolves around what parents should do or what individuals should do. But really, these products are coming from companies who are making decisions based on profit and not on the interests of children and society. And that is where I think we need, we need some regulation. Part of the reason why toys looked a lot better in the 70s is because there was some albeit way too little, but there was some regulation that prevented them from being able to advertise using television programs, things like that.
Right.
There's nothing now, so it's all on the corporations to be responsible, and that, that's not going well.
That's an oxymoron. A responsible corporation. Yeah, it's very, very, very rare. And this, like racism, sexism is systemic. So if you're only picking it off, Band-Aid at a time, it doesn't get you very far. You're currently working on a new book?
Yes, I'm working on a book manuscript, so sort of building on my dissertation research, and really tracking this change in gendered toys over the 20th century. So, and again, mapping that onto how toys sometimes reflect and sometimes reinforce and sometimes are working at odds with gender relations in the adult world.
Wow, that's very important. So it's still in progress, the work.
It is in progress.
Well, alert any publishers who are listening. This is going to be a fantastic book. So when she finishes it, pay attention.
Thank you so much.
If you're lucky, run out and get her under contract. Playing with Gender, Toys, Gender, and Inequality over the 20th Century. A very important subject because although we're in the 21st century now, we have a tiny bit of perspective, particularly with her on our side. And what happens to those children affects, I don't know, the 22nd century. How about that?
Absolutely.
So it's really, really important. Thanks for the work you do, Elizabeth. And
thank you so much.
And thanks for being with us on Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. Well, here's a new one. An article by a Chinese military official suggested that Taiwan's new president, a woman, was extreme and emotional because she was unmarried. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it provoked an outcry, and it undermined the ruling Communist Party's efforts to win allies across the Taiwan Strait. The article was written by a senior scholar for the People's Liberation Army, and it described Tsai Ing-wen, Taiwan's first female leader, as a, quote, single woman politician, close quote, and said that she was prone to a radical style because she lacked, quote, the burden of love, family, and children, close quote. It's amazing. In one passage, Mr. Wang, who wrote the piece, suggested that she also was loyal to Japan because she liked to eat Japanese rice balls. So watch yourself on Japanese rice balls. And in another, he offered a tirade on another point that her father had several wives, and this meant that she herself has a conspicuous duplicity to her personality. Kind of sounds like the crazy things they say about Hillary. Anyway, he added that she's doomed to dwell in this contradiction for a lifetime. But people all over China, the mainland, not only Taiwan, fought back. One said it's discrimination against women and being single. That was Sun Jingjae, a lecturer at Jilin University in northeast China, pointing out that Putin divorced during his presidency. Has Russia's strategy changed since? And then China's equivalent of Twitter, Weibo, went crazy over this, saying, one tweet said, does this mean you will agree to the independence of Taiwan so long as she gets married? Anyway, the article threatened to become quite a public relations blunder for the Communist Party. And Ms. Tsai herself is a 59-year-old former law professor, and she has endured questions about her decision to stay single and not have kids for years. She says, quote, in a traditional society, a woman who never marries would be regarded as less whole. But in modern society, what marriage provides is also available outside of marriage, isn't it? Close quote. Definitely a win in a sense, because there was backlash against the pronouncement, the sexist pronouncement, and that shows a lot of hope as China rises up. But the situation itself and his accusations were surreal. It's time for another short pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And when we return, I'll be speaking with award-winning New York Times reporter Somini Sengupta about her new book on India, the world's largest democracy, with some extraordinary population developments. It's fascinating. Stay with us.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again. My next guest, Somini Sengupta. You may recognize her byline. She is a foreign correspondent for the New York Times, currently covering the United Nations. She was previously the Times bureau chief in Dakar and New Delhi, and she writes about technology and the law as well. She was born in Calcutta, grew up in Canada and California, and graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, and she is the recipient of the 2004 George Polk Award for Foreign Reporting. Her first book, The End of Karma, is very special, and she's here to talk about it today. Welcome to the program, Somini.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you wrote this book, The End of Karma, Hope and Fury Among India's Young. Oh wow, I don't know where to begin. This is your first book, even though you were bureau chief for the New York Times in Dakar and in New Delhi, and you've been a journalist, a really terrific journalist for quite a while. But what a hell of a first book! Wow.
Well, thank you. It took several years to write, mainly because it was written on Sundays and holidays. So I am very glad to be done with it.
Wow. Well, you certainly picked a burgeoning subject. If Indians under age 35 were their own nation, their ranks would surpass the combined population of the United States, Britain, and France. So young Indian population is enormous and growing and breaking free of old ways. I want to ask so many things. First of all, how, if at all, does the population imbalance, the gender imbalance, for the first time ever, more men than women, has that shown itself yet, or is that still in very young children?
First of all, let me give you just a mind-blowing number. India is not only going to become the world's most populous country in and around 2022, that's like another 6 years, but it's already the home to the world's young. At a time when the world is aging very swiftly, India is where young people are. Every month, 1 million Indians are turning 18.
Wow.
Every month, 1 million Indians. And so they are, joining the labor force. They're eligible to vote. Many of them are embracing the internet for the first time. They're falling in love. They're speaking out, and that's really why I think this is such an important moment. Not just for India, because any country with that number of that large balloon of young people is going to be transformed, right?
Well,
think of our own country in the late 60s and early 70s. That was our baby boom.
It's the future. It's the future. That's all.
We have seen the future, and it is India.
Exactly.
Yes. And you ask about the gender imbalance. Now, India has had for some time a gender imbalance. It has grown. In short, because of new technology, because of ultrasound machines and people's, prosperity, they're able to afford the ultrasound tests, even though they're illegal for gender determination. There is quite a significant gender imbalance, not quite as high as in China, but a very significant one, and it shows up among the young. And so, among Indians between the ages of 10 and 24, there are something like 17 million extra boys.
Wow. Yeah, for the first time in the history of, since history has been kept, since the numbers have been kept, men outnumber women on the planet, and that is largely driven by China and secondarily by India because of amniocentesis and male preference for sons. I think the first time that India's young really came into global consciousness was after the horrific rape murder of Jyoti Singh was that 2012, the bus murder?
That's right, December 2012.
And it was, I gather, first, or so I understand from other Indian feminists, that it was led by young women feminists about her age, and then other students joined in, guys, and then the labor unions, and then soon it was the whole population that was marching and demanding more action on violence against women. Is that true?
That was a real watershed moment because I think my gut feeling is that this young woman who you referred to, she was like so many other young women. She was, she came from a family of modest means. She was really trying to make something of herself. She was full of ambition, getting an education, and she went out to a movie with her boyfriend one night, on a Sunday night, and they got into a private bus. And she and he were brutalized. She was so brutalized that she, of course, died of her injuries a couple of weeks later, but displayed what many Indians thought was remarkable courage in telling the story of what had happened to her, identifying her perpetrators, and this, as you rightly say, really uncorked a tremendous rage and frustration among young women, but also lots and lots of young men who said,
enough is enough. We are not going to tolerate this kind of violence against women. And I think as a result of these protests, not only did you see the government being compelled to change certain laws, important laws were changed as a result of these protests, but also something intangible. What I noticed was after this incident, many more women of several generations were willing to come out and describe what had happened to them. Whether they were harassed at home, whether they were raped by a relative or a family friend, whether they were attacked on the streets. And so it really did mark a moment when young women said sort of publicly, we are not going to stay quiet about this anymore. We are going to file police reports. We are going to demand that this is a crime taken seriously, and we're going to demand that the law is upheld. And that is really a remarkable
It is. I remember being so moved. I remember crying as I watched the television films of these young women and young men marching. And I had known for a long time there has been an Indian women's movement. Going back before independence, way before independence. In fact, the West stole many tactics from the Indian women's movement, but it had been a movement and it had reached out, but the numbers to reach out to were so staggering that this was a tipping point.
Yeah, I think anger really did boil over. Now, of course, as you rightly say, there has been a long-standing feminist movement, a women's rights movement of all kinds, on specific issues that affect women, on broader issues. But of course, it can also be true, as in our society, you can have a very active feminist movement, but also have a deep-seated tradition of misogyny, and a deep, deep degradation of daughters. And I think this is very specific to India. I do think that there is a very specific degradation and a real contempt for girls.
How would you characterize the specificity in terms of India, or where do you think it comes from?
Yeah,
is it colonization? Is it religion?
I don't think that there is such an easy answer, is colonization responsible for it, or is it, endemic to one faith over another? I do think that there's been just a long tradition of not valuing daughters. Yeah. And you need to look no further than what we just talked about. The devaluation of daughters starts very, very early. Yeah. So much so that female fetuses are systematically eliminated. Right. But then it continues throughout a child's life. And so for many, many years, girls were not sent to school, but boys were. Right. I must say that has really changed. And so now if you look at the numbers in primary school enrollment is nearly 100%, and that is true for girls as well as boys. Yeah. Now, of course, at the higher grades, especially after 7th grade, 8th grade, the girls' numbers are lower than boys, but certainly for girls, access to education has really picked up. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that parents, mothers and fathers, now realize very, very well that a girl child without an Education is not going to be able to do very well in life, including not finding, a very good husband. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of motivations for parents to send their girls to school. And, I found this sort of in village after village, town after town. I would ask parents, well, why are you sending your daughters to school? Right. And they would say, just very simply, I want her life to be better than mine. Period.
That's what a parent the world over says. It's just wonderful. I mean, that's a new phenomenon. The book is amazing, and Somini is the ideal person to have written it because, of course, you were born in India and your family moved to Canada, and then you came back to work in India as a journalist. There's sort of a 3-area breakdown in the book. There's the personal story which is fascinating. And then there's the reporter's voice, and you're a prize-winning reporter and deservedly so. And then there are these portraits of the 7 or 8 young Indians that are so moving, from one young woman who becomes a Maoist to a young guy who tries and fails and tries. It's just, I cried. I literally cried in parts. So I want to
thank you. Just, just to clarify, I was born in India, as you say, and I moved to Canada. My family moved to Canada, but then most of my childhood was in the United States, actually.
Yes.
I grew up in California.
Yeah. I meant to say that. That's right.
And then went back exactly 30 years after I left.
Right. Wow. And also, you're just a damn good writer. That's just the sum of it.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for this book, and which again is called The End of Karma, Hope and Fury Among India's Young. The author is Somini Sengupta. And if you are at all interested in what is basically the future for the planet, which is Indians, young Indian people, and if you're especially interested in what happens to the women, which I am, and most of these listeners are, this is the book to run, not walk, to get, The End of Karma. Thank you, Somini, and keep on writing. This is an auspicious first book. Wow, is it ever.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And now it's time for our little feature, We Won This. Well, brace yourself. I'm going to say something positive about the Senate. Advocates for victims of sexual assault have recently praised the Senate's unanimous approval of a bill that would establish a set of rights for victims and survivors of sexual assault, including the right to be informed of the results of forensic tests and to have the evidence preserved. The legislation was inspired by Amanda Nguyen, a student who visited Senator Jean Shaheen, Democrat of New Hampshire, last summer to express anguish about the handling of her sexual assault. She was horrified to discover that her rape kit could be discarded within months under Massachusetts law, and she has to return to the state every 6 months to ensure it isn't destroyed. So the Senate measure would generally require that victims be notified of the results of rape kit tests, including any DNA matches, as well as toxicology reports that could show whether they'd been given a date rape drug, for instance. And it would codify existing protections from the Violence Against Women Act that prevent victims from being charged for those exams, meaning that the right could be upheld in court. And the bill would ensure as well that rape kits could be preserved without charge for 20 years or until the statute of limitations expires, whichever comes first. And since statutes of limitations vary greatly, this is important. The fight for greater protections has played out most publicly recently on college campuses and in military courts-martial. This extends the rights of the survivor and victims, and let's just hope it makes it through the House of Representatives. But for now, good for the Senate. We won this. Time now for one last break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll return directly with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again in time for some fighting words. In our ongoing national nightmare about Donald Trump possibly ascending the presidency when clearly a madman, I decided that being just a layperson and not a shrink, I should probably test my analysis against objective science. So I went to the standard reference, the Mental Health Bible, the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM for short, so I could check out the categories of clinical disorders. Oh, this was enormously helpful. Donald Trump is utterly diagnosable. Let's take them one by one. Phobias. Not only does Trump not drink or smoke, which is fine in itself, but he has germ phobia, which apparently makes all that handshaking terrifying and doubtless means he's bought stock in Purell. He has to control, well, everything. But his deepest phobias involve women, especially our bodily fluids. Women going to the bathroom, as Hillary did during a debate break, was, quote, disgusting. New mothers breastfeeding their babies are, quote, disgusting. A reporter's possible menstrual discharge just because he didn't like a question she asked him, disgusting. Trump's gynophobia apparently is only staunched by having complete control over a teenage boy's fantasy of what a female human being should look like so he can masturbate to it. Categories of delirium, dementia, amnesia, and other cognitive disorders. Oh dear, so much Trump craziness, so little time. Do we start with the cognitive dissonance of his calling for few or no government regulations while promising to do through executive order things simply not permitted by the Constitution, like, hey, building that wall against Mexico, deporting all members of the U.S. population currently lacking papers, and barring all Muslims from the country? Climate change to him is a hoax, although he names it as the culprit when rising tides threaten his Scottish golf course. Now, once I would have called this hypocrisy, but you know that requires an ethical context, and we're dealing here with a ding-dong, so dissociative state works much better. Messiah complex, oh my, you should excuse the phrase God. The press may have enabled his delusional behavior with nonstop coverage, but even his own followers don't believe that everything he does or touches is the biggest, the best, the most successful. His followers just don't care. They're in intense clinical depression and denial themselves. As for denial, wow, what a category. Endless. He cherishes women, after having called for us to be treated like dirt because apparently women enjoy that. Eating a taco bowl is proof that he loves the Hispanics, whom he then declares love him back just as much or more. As for amnesia, that apparently allows him to blithely deny statements and positions he's made and taken repeatedly, even when confronted with them on tape in living color. Then there are the anxiety disorders, paranoia, often with attendant hallucinations. His insisted-on memory of what never actually occurred, Muslim Americans dancing joyously in New Jersey after 9/11. This disorder enables him to see nonviolent protesters at his events as threatening thugs, sent variously by Hillary or by Bernie, because to him it's unthinkable that independent-minded citizens might wish to protest his sexism, racism, nativism, and other phobia politics, and it conveniently enables him to unleash his own real thugs in violent attacks against those protesters. Trump is actually trying to be an agent of contagion for paranoia and hallucinations, along with other anxiety disorders, so as to further expand current unease in the population into full-blown epidemic dimensions, which is where anger management disorder comes in, because it temporarily paralyzes ordinary people in sheer disbelief. The list goes on. Delusions of persecution, of righteousness, and dogmatic solipsistic refusals to even imagine that others might not want to share his opinions, and certainly grandiosity, covering an insecurity which must be deeper than the Mariana Trench. As for sexual and gender identity disorders, oh please. Multiple wives and serial mistresses, multiple affairs while married, admitted lust for his own daughter, grading women by number and always only on appearance. Oh yes, and policies also inimical to women's equality. Trump displays symptoms of addictive behavior, too, a habituated dependency on exhibitionism and attention, plus the petrified resistance to change. This man exhibits so many symptoms listed in the DSM that he may be a record breaker. His father's behavior and his family life when he was a child sound authoritarian and deeply troubled. His brother killed himself. At minimum, Trump qualifies as a sociopath, a personality disorder characterized by lack of empathy, shallow emotions, egocentricity, antisocial behavior, and abuse of others. And sociopaths are disproportionately interested in or responsible for violence, though they sometimes can pass themselves off as average individuals. Can he pass himself off as an average candidate for the most powerful office in the world? Well, the GOP, putting their own party above the good of the Republic, has joined in his madness. But I think Donald needs help in a quiet, contained place, nowhere near the nuclear button. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and be sure to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com. There you can find the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes. And we're at iTunes worldwide. There you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Regina K. Scully is our founding sponsor. Julie Burton, Women's Media Center President, is executive producer. And I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.